everyone, my name is Yashmi Priya, and in today's video I am going to be using the Lyra Rembrandt Polycolor Pencils to do a illustration or a drawing. I did get a few requests last year asking me to use these pencils. Now I have used these pencils initially when I started my channel, as well as before that. I was using these pencils along with some of the Derwent artists in studio and Coloursoft pencils as well. But I started using this after that. You can see these are my color swatches. I like to swatch all my color pencils out, or all my art supplies out, so that I know when I'm doing any drawing or illustration which colors to reach for. Yeah, so I have used this already a lot before. This is long before I started my YouTube channel, as well as this we're looking at like 2017 maybe, and it was also before I started using my polychromos and my Derwent Lightfast and all of those brands. So I have done a lot of my early drawings with these pencils, but since I had a request for me to try out these pencils, I said I'll just do a video and show you how I use them, a newer video, and just show you basically how I work with them. I really enjoy using these pencils, and once I worked with them, now again I remembered like how much I enjoyed using them before, when I used to do my drawings and color pencil drawings before. So I start off with a sketch. I'm using a regular graphite pencil, but I am keeping the drawing light, and I start off using the black just for the eye. I usually always start using or start drawing or coloring in the eye of any animal that I draw. I don't know, it's just something that I prefer to do. I think it sets a tone for me before I start the piece. I'm not sure what the reason is, but I always work with the eye first. So what I've noticed about these pencils, and using them now after using so many of the other brands, they're definitely a pencil that's worth giving a try if you're looking for something that's more affordable and that can get the you can layer, and you'll be able to use odourless mineral spirits to blend. You will see me using some odourless mineral spirits later on to blend up the colors a bit, but even though I use that, you will see there's not a big necessity for me to do that, because I can layer multiple layers and not have to use the mineral spirits. So with these pencils, you don't have to use them. If you layer enough pencil, you won't need to use it, but it is an option if you just want to bring more saturation and vibrancy to your piece, and also to make sure that all the white of the paper is covered once you're working with your drawing or your illustration, or after you've laid all your color for the drawing. So you can see I'm going in with this piece, working from the eye, working outwards. So I'm starting from the eye, I'm starting to add in all the different colors. This is a Military Macaw Parrot, so there's a lot of red and green. There's different tones of reds and greens, even some orange in there. So I was using a lot of different colors as I was working on this piece. It did take a while to do this piece. Remember, with any color pencil drawing, it takes time. Although I did work not so hyper realistic with this one, because I just wanted it to be a demonstration to show you how I use these pencils. But I pretty much use them in the same way that I would use my polychromos or my Derwent Lightfast or my luminance, whichever pencil I'm using, even my new chromo flows, I would use all of them in the same manner. So these are definitely pencils that if you are starting off with color pencil, I would recommend giving them a try. They are more affordable. They give you a quite good range of colors, and they have a they work well on layering, they work well with blending. They go down very quickly. I mean, you can cover an area really quickly, and you can layer it multiple times. I am using hot press watercolor paper for my drawings. I do all my color pencil drawings with hot press watercolor paper, and you can see I'm layering and layering, and at this point I'm using no odourless mineral spirits. I'm only just layering in the pencil. And the good thing about it is, once you have layered in enough color, you can go over it with darker colors and add those shadows or those darker values. Remember, if you want to create a realistic drawing, you need to have values, and you need to have your shadows dark enough and your highlights light enough. So you can see I'm slowly building up the texture of that fluffy feathers, but the feathery look on the top of their head, and then you can move down to the green. And as you can see, up until this point I have not used any odorless mineral spirits. I'm only using the pencils, and I must say there's a good range of colors, and I was able to layer them really well. And definitely these pencils, if you see some of my earlier videos, you will see me using these pencils a lot for my drawings. But basically I use them in the same manner as I would use any of my other color pencils. If you see the lighting changing, getting cooler and warmer, it was sunny, but from time to time it got a bit cloudy, and then sunny again, cloudy. The weather's been a bit unpredictable, and I am using daylight to film in. So that's the reason for the lighting changing. But you can see I went over the layers of the green, and then I went over with some darker greens and to get that darker shadows in. You can even see for the red area I went really dark. Now that is not a black that I've used. I'm using purples, and I'm using I think it's a wine, there's a name, it's got wine in it, but it's a really dark sort of a maroonish color. I'm using that as well, and some purples for my shadow areas. I tend not to use black for shadows unless it's an area that needs to have black, and I retain some of the lighter areas in that area that has the black. I use black. Otherwise I try to refrain from using a black pencil, purely black. I try to use a bit of purples, blues, or even a darker color of the color that I'm trying to put for the shadows or for the values. So you can see now I'm starting to work on the beak. I'm keeping the light areas light, and I'm starting to add some of those textures to the beaks. Remember, the beaks of the macaw parrots, or any parrot for that matter, are not completely smooth. They have different textures. They have a little bit of some places with markings on them, scrapes, scratches. It's not completely smooth, so bear that in mind when you are trying to create a realistic drawing. So once again, you can see I'm layering different grays. I'm retaining the lighter areas, but at the same time I'm darkening some of those really dark values. So now you can see I'm going in with my odorless mineral spirits. I use a very little bit on a brush, and I do have a paper towel that I dab off the excess onto, because I just need barely a little bit, like a little bit on the brush. I don't need it to be soaked because I don't want to soak the entire drawing. I just want to get a little bit of a blend. So you see there I went over the red area. It didn't make such a big difference. It did smoothen everything out, but it didn't completely change the layering, because I have layered enough of the color pencil to have that effect that I want. And now once that's dry, I can go over that area again and add a bit more details if I need to. And that's a good thing about using mineral spirits. But always try to let it dry first, because if you do go over an area with the mineral spirits and then you try to go onto it with the pencil, you're going to get some really dark strokes with the pencil, and sometimes that may not be needed for your drawing. So just bear that in mind when you are working with mineral spirits. But I use odorless mineral spirits for all my color pencil drawings, irrespective of which brand or which make of pencil I'm using. It just helps me to blend it better, and to basically get rid of that white texture of the paper. Because I'm using hot press paper, I don't have a lot of that happening, but you do still see some of that white showing through. And another thing you can notice, that while I'm working with the pencil, I'm not really pressing hard. I'm keeping a light hand when I'm adding the colors, and I'm adding colors to certain areas depending on my reference photo, as well as I'm keeping the directions of the strokes relative to the actual feathers, and the way the feathers are falling on the bird, or the way they are placed on the bird. But I am also not paying too much of attention to that and really keeping it very smooth or very neat. I'm just adding the color where I see fit and darkening it as I move along. So it's good to start with one area and move to another area. If you'd like to, for example, I worked on the face and the eye, and then I went over to the forehead, and then I moved a little bit to the back of the head, and then I worked to the beak, then I'm going down the back of the head. Now I've gone to the neck area. You can work section by section. Try not to do the entire piece one time, because if you try to do the entire piece by going from the face, and you're working on the beak, and you're working on the feathers, and you're working on the head, and you're working on the neck, and you're all over the place, you can easily lose track of what you are trying to achieve, and you may add colors where you don't need specific colors. Also, you want to create that overlap of feathers. So by working from the top bottom, top to the bottom, you can slowly build those layers of feathers, which creates that effect of having the layers of the feathers. So remember, values are very important. You need to have your dark values as dark as possible and the lighter values as light as possible. So retain your highlights and really darken your shadows. Now on the neck area, I have used some of the black and even some of the areas around the wing, because those areas do have black on it, but I'm not trying to keep black to the entire piece. I'm using dark greens rather than using black, because if I do use black everywhere, it's going to lose the impact of the realism of the bird, because the bird doesn't have a lot of black on it except around the neck area. But on the for the overlapping, for the shadows, I'm trying to just keep the where the feather overlaps, I'm trying to keep the area underneath just a little bit darker by using the darker green instead of using black. And obviously with greens, I wouldn't suggest using purple, but you could use a dark blue, like a really dark blue. Indigo could also work well if you're looking for all colors similar to indigo, which I have used here as well. That could also help to create some of those darker shadows in the green areas. With the red, the purple goes well for the shadows, but with the green, I think the indigo and a darker blue would go better. But you don't want something also that will make it too blue and then it'll look blue-green instead of looking just a green. So you can see I'm slowly building up the layers of the colors, and then I'm going over with a little bit of the mineral spirits just to blend it out. And like I said, you can see there's a slight difference to the areas when I'm blending, but not so much that it is completely dependent on the mineral spirits. I could have left it just with the pencil layers as it was, and I didn't need to use the mineral spirits. But I just feel it gives it a more smoother look, and then you can just go in afterwards and add a little bit more texture and details without using mineral spirits, just to create some of those textures for the bird on the final piece after you've used the mineral spirits, because sometimes the mineral spirits could smoothen out things too much or a bit more than you wanted to. So you just add a bit more detail and texture afterwards, just so that you have the piece looking more realistic, and having those textures, they make it look more realistic. So definitely I would recommend you trying out these pencils. It's more affordable and you get a good range of colors, and you can use them just as you would with the other brands, the more expensive brands. And definitely I've enjoyed using these pencils in the past, and I will continue to use them in the future. And yeah, I guess that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to like and share. Feel free to comment below, and don't forget to subscribe. Till the next one. Bye.